saying it's upcoming, and I've refreshed it multiple times.
Okay, no,
at
just do it again.
socialsecurity.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Okay, I'm trying.
Hi, I'm Diana. As a veteran, I know that for many servicemen and women, the battle doesn't always end when they come home. Because I too struggle with the invisible wounds of service.
Okay, Pam Morris-Walton, could you please talk for us?
Pups for Patriots program,
Good morning
which brought
to
Sam into
you.
my life.
This is the day that the
Before
Lord
being
has
paired
made.
with Sam, I didn't get out of bed for most days.
People be glad.
Pups for Patriots and
And
Sam
rejoice
literally
with-
changed my life.
Okay, I can hear you, and we got 60 seconds.
Or without having a panic attack,
Okay.
I'm finally able to live my life the way I want to live it. Pups for Patriots provides trained service dogs to veterans like me at no cost. If you're a veteran or know a veteran struggling with post-traumatic stress or traumatic brain injury, please go to AmericanHumane.org to learn about their Pups for Patriots service dog program. Let's give our veterans a fighting chance.
A message from American Humane.
This is Morgan Freeman, executive producer of the documentary The C Word. And I'm here to tell you that defeating cancer takes breakthroughs. A breakthrough is the start of something extraordinary. You, the patients, taking part in clinical trials. You, the scientists, doing next-level research to beat cancer. You, the doctors who care for everyone. Let's be the breakthrough.
10 seconds, everyone.
Trials, go to standuptocancer.org/breakthrough. Please talk to your healthcare provider about appropriate screenings and clinical trials.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
All right.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's a joy to be with you today. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope you had a marvelous holiday. I certainly did. I was able to be with my family. Thank God. My father got out of the hospital and came out of he had gone to get rehab. The people at Northwestern are very, very kind to him. Every time he's gone into the hospital, they send him directly to rehab to help him to speak better, move, have greater movement. And we just send special love to the people and to the staff, to the doctors, to everyone who works at Northwestern and at Shirley Ryan. Thank you for always being so kind. To our family. Hey, everybody. It is November 27th, 2023. It is just 4 weeks away from Christmas. Will we have peace in the Middle East for Christmas? One wonders. We're going to talk today about something that's been happening, a story that came up over the past few days. I think we should all be concerned about it. Hill Harper, we have known and loved Hill Harper as an actor for many, many years now. Very successful, but many of you may not know he and former President Obama were classmates at Harvard Law School. He's a lawyer and he's a union organizer, and he has a really rich background, He's done a lot. And now he's running for the U.S. Senate in Michigan. Well, a businessman who has contributed heavily to AIPAC offered him $20 million to run against Rashida Tlaib. $20 million, $10 million in bundled contributions, $10 million in other contributions. Okay. It was a private conversation. It didn't last long. And he said, no, thank you. But the conversation became public. So he had to say, hey, yeah, well, I said no, and I'm loyal, and I'm not going to do that to Congresswoman Tlaib. So I want to know what your thoughts are about that today. We're going to talk with Nina Turner. That's right. Nina Turner, the famous spokesperson for Bernie Sanders, former state senator Nina Turner from Ohio. This is what happened to her when she ran in her race in Ohio. AIPAC money flooded in against her and took her out. It almost happened to Summer Lee in Pennsylvania. This is what was happening to Reverend Jackson during his campaigns, and on and on and on. And The Intercept online magazine said, this is that AIPAC targets Black progressives in particular. So let's talk about this, because now more than half of the Congressional Black Caucus, unlike the Black Caucus that we knew when I was growing up 30, 40 years ago, more than half of them have big AIPAC money. So what does that do to the consensus when the overwhelming majority of Black people want a ceasefire, when they want Palestinian justice to be married to Israeli security? There's a lot going on. So I want to know what your thoughts are. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. What about this money? And it could be AIPAC, it could be the gun lobby, it could be so many different entities that really try to hold on to the vote. Perhaps that is why, even though 68% of Americans, some polls say 66%, many say 68%, more and more Americans want a ceasefire. And they don't want it just for 4 days. They want a permanent ceasefire, and they want peace in the Middle East. And yet, pitifully few, not even 10% of the Congress, U.S. House of Representatives will sign on to it. They're too scared to. They can't because their money is telling them to do something else. So what does that say about American politics? I want you to call me. That's 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. And I want to hear your thoughts today. Call me at 773-763-9278. Got a tremendous panel who are going to talk to us about this today on the Santita Jackson Show. In the meantime, according to these headlines from the Washington Post, Hamas has released dozens of hostages over the weekend. Thank goodness for that. Israeli women and children, including a 4-year-old American Israeli, Abigail Edan, and Thai and Philippine nationals were released this weekend. More set to be released from Gaza today. And of course, interestingly, they call the Palestinians, many of whom have not been charged, they call them the prisoners. Well, they're all hostages. How about that? Palestinians were released too. Good thing, everybody. 3 Palestinian students were injured in a shooting in Vermont. They were wearing the keffiyehs, so they were readily identified in Burlington, which, interestingly enough, is where Bernie Sanders had been mayor when we met him more than 40 years ago. A gunman approached the students in Burlington on Sunday and shot them at least 4 times. One was shot close to the spine before fleeing, police said. Police are looking into the possibility that it was a race or hate-motivated crime. A 48-year-old man was arrested in the shooting. Federal authorities say that there has been a rise in threats against Arab, Jewish, and Muslim communities since the Israel-Gaza conflict began last month. President Biden will skip a leaders summit at the climate talks in Dubai this week. World leaders will gather at COP28, the annual UN climate change conference, Friday and Saturday. Biden has attended the past 2 gatherings. The U.S. is the world's largest historical emitter of greenhouse gases. Biden's absence could raise questions about his commitment to tackling this problem. And Derek Chauvin, the former Minneapolis police officer who had his knee on the neck of George Floyd, well, he was seriously injured in Arizona in prison on Friday. Minnesota's attorney general said he was taken to a hospital for treatment. He was convicted of the 2020 murder of George Floyd, which sparked nationwide protests. However you slice it, whatever way you slice it, you certainly pray for his health and strength and pray for his family, because that's got to be so frightening to them, everybody. In Chicago, we'll have a high of 28 degrees, partly sunny. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 23 degrees and sunny. In the NFL tonight, Chicago, excuse me, Chicago and the Vikings will be playing at 7:15 p.m. Ooh, I can't wait. Excuse me. And in the NBA, the Nets 118, the Bulls 109. The Timberwolves, though, however, they were triumphant over the Grizzlies, 119-97 in the NHL. The Blues 4, Chicago 2, the Red Wings 4, the Wild 1. And those, are some of the headlines. I like cough and cough and cough. My gospel sister, I'm going to have you take it away, Pam Morris, Walton, so that I can get me some water.
I got it.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got it. Good morning, and hope your Thanksgiving was a wonderful one. Thanks. I'm so happy to hear about your father and the progress that is happening, and also season's greetings to you. Recognizing the seasons of life. We are recognizing the seasons of life. And I think about this, Santita, and good morning to all of your viewers and listeners. What a wonderful sight the first buds of spring are each year. And in the same way that winter gives way to spring and summer ushers in fall, we go through seasons in our lives. Even when we have a clear direction, even when we reach our target destination, we sometimes feel that God keeps us there for only a season. So we have to know where we're going in life, and we have to know when it's time to leave. I want to say it time. So we have to know where we're going in life, recognizing the seasons of life. And we have to know when it's time to leave. And sometimes we have a difficult season and situation too soon. And we miss a blessing God has waiting for us because we didn't hold on. We left. And other times we stay put when it's past time for us to leave. Then we're in danger of stagnating spiritually and emotionally. Leaving too soon or staying too soon can add tremendous stress to an already stressed out life. Not every season of your life may be springtime, but knowing what a winter season is, just that it's a season, everybody. It will help you remain where God wants you until it's time to move forward. Oftentimes, I read Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter, the 1st through the 8th verse. I will not do that this morning, but it starts out with, to everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven. Time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted. And it goes on and it goes on. So it is equally important to know God. Each day, God is trying to tell us something. Each day, God is trying to tell us something. Each day, we must listen because he does instruct us to pray. Give us this day our daily bread. We do not have to ask for an entire loaf at that time. We ask for daily bread. Whatever we need to sustain and help us through that particular day in our life, our season of life. So ask God to help you to identify and understand the seasons in your life. Is this a time to move? Is it a time to stay put? Is it a time to work hard or work harder? Or is it a time to rest and relax? To everything, there is a season. We're just recognizing the season of life. Thank you, Santita, and have a great week and day.
Blessings to you, but let me just ask you this question very quickly.
Yes.
Sometimes we have so much noise going on in our own heads that we don't recognize the signs. That's, for people who are very, very in touch with themselves, okay. But a lot of us, sometimes I have to stop and go, wait a minute. I think the Lord was trying to talk to me right then. And I go, I missed it. How do you know? For those of us who are just really struggling to get in touch with that part of ourselves.
Well, I heard my husband say recently to someone that thousands of thoughts run through our mind every day, but you got to be wise enough, strong enough, spiritual enough, got yourself together enough to know the right thoughts, to know the right thing. Because, see, God doesn't do wrong. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He doesn't do wrong. We do, but he doesn't. So are we following his direction?
I think that's hard for us. Really, really difficult. It is.
Yeah.
But you're right. You're right. But how do you know to even ask that question? Right?
I know his voice. I know his voice. I know his voice. I know the difference.
Okay.
He's not gonna lead you wrong. He never does and never will.
Amen to that. Thank
So
you
you
for
have to be
that.
strong enough. You have to be strong enough to know which direction to take. Sometimes if you're driving down the street and you just don't know what's up ahead, and something in your mind says, go left instead of right, and you don't listen, and you go right instead of left, and you run right into a situation that your mind told you moments or seconds ago, don't go that way. Okay. That's why I follow Waze, W-A-Z-E, in my car. Because sometimes it says, no, don't hit the expressway. I'm going to take you the streetway. But you're going to still get there. That's it.
Thank you for that. Because you will hear that
You're
little
welcome.
voice that will tell you, no, go here. No, do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
that still
Yeah, but do you
small
follow
voice.
it?
You're
But
right.
do you follow it?
No.
Yeah, but do you follow it? Okay.
No, we
Maybe
don't.
you should follow that still voice. And it'll be different in all of our lives. Not just my life, not just your life, but everybody's life. I was riding down Dan Ryan the other day in Chicago, because I know you have people from all over. And the Lord told me to get off of the Dan Ryan. And I said, well, I'm almost at 31st Street where I need to get off. The Lord said, get off. I got off before 31st Street, because at 31st Street, there was an accident where 3 cars had ran into each other. And the traffic, I didn't even see it, stopped. Off and went the other way, still coming south. Still going north. And I saw it. I said, thank you, Jesus. I said, thank you, Jesus. So listen to that small voice as you recognize the seasons in your life.
Thank you for that.
Read Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 8. It'll tell you there's in everything there is a season. There is a time and a season. Sometimes you don't need to go do that. You need to wait. Follow that small voice. Thank you, Santita. Love you.
I love you, and thank you for that. You know, sometimes everybody, it's the little things. It's the little things that we're missing.
Yeah.
It's the little things that we're
Yeah.
missing.
Yeah.
Little ways,
Yeah.
little ways,
Yeah.
little ways. Sending you so much love today.
Yeah.
I hope you had a wonderful
thank you,
holiday. Thank you for picking up for me as I was coughing
I did.
and whatnot. Ooh.
Yeah, it's all right. It's okay, and you sound better. I was in Pensacola with my youngest son, and he was doing well. He is my youngest son, and he's 50 years young.
And here you
and I cooked dinner for
looking
him,
like
and it was
you
wonderful.
looking like you in your 40s. Girl, get on out here. Be quiet. Get on out
I love
here.
you. See you later. Okay, I'm
love
happy.
her. Ain't that nothing? She was couldn't be giving us the good news and then coming on here not telling the truth. You know your son is 25. Come on.
That's it. No. He's 2 years younger than my oldest.
Get like I said, I'm gonna get off of here so that the Lord doesn't strike us both. Me for believing you, kind of, sort of.
You go ahead.
Here she looks like she's
you keep on going.
look like you're over 40. Get on out of here.
This is God. This is God.
It sure
and with
is.
the new heart, He done blessed me with a second chance at life, honey. And I'm doing well. And I thank God. I thank God. I don't thank nobody else now.
Now, how can we get your book?
I thank Him first.
We need to, because you need to tell us about
well, let me tell you this. Let me tell you this, and I'm going to say it real quick because I know you must move on. Every 34 seconds, one person dies from cardiovascular disease. And I'm still here breathing because I have someone's heart. And I wrote my story. It's called 57 Days, everybody. The wait for a new heart marks a spiritual journey of faith and love. You don't have to get an autographed copy. You're hearing me now. But go to Amazon. Order it from Barnes & Noble. It's an ebook. Or get an autographed copy at PamMorrisSpeaks.com. I love you.
I love you. I love you, everybody. That's the testimony. No testimony.
And it's a true story. It's a true story, everybody. I don't look like what I've been through. I don't look like what I've been through.
Oh, amen.
All right, I'm through.
No, that's a whole lot. And thank you for that.
Thank you, Jesus. You're welcome. You're welcome.
I love Pam Morris, our gospel sister, just helping us to get along now, everybody. And, sending much love to the family of Minister Louis Farrakhan, who had his son's service on Saturday. It was a wonderful service. Joshua was a wonderful, wonderful young man. Wouldn't hurt a fly. And all you heard throughout the mosque was how he helped people and how much love he gave to people throughout the course of his life. He was just 64 years of age, but had lived a really, really full life. Indeed, their media ministry was created by him. And I've known him for so many decades. And what I've learned from my Muslim brothers and sisters is that you cry the first day because the person is missing from your life, but you rejoice the second day and after that because now they're with God. And I pray that peace upon Mother Khadijah, Minister Farrakhan, his surviving siblings, his children, his grandchildren, his nieces, his nephews. So many of us miss him, but I'm trying to learn how to rejoice because I know that he's with God. He's joined Denise Lewis. Ramsey Lewis lost another one of his children. My next door neighbor, she was my big sister. And so many people are going home. And so everybody, please let someone who is here today, let them know that you love them and mean it. Let them know, because any argument you might have had doesn't even matter. It really doesn't matter. So coming up, we've got Nina Turner, everybody. Nina Turner to talk to us about what happened in her race. Now it's coming out. That's right. Hill Harper was offered $20 million to drop his Senate race and to run against Rashida Tlaib. You can't make this stuff up. But now we're kind of seeing how this thing works. And what do you think about it? Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Sometimes life is wonderful, and sometimes it's not. Cherish the good, but always be prepared for life's challenges. At Private Healthcare, we provide the peace of mind you deserve. Private healthcare is private health insurance for ages 65 and under with medical, dental, vision, and even prescription coverage. Call 800-581-9073. That's 800-581-9073. 800-581-9073.
Hey, son, how are you feeling?
I'm fine, Pops.
What's on your mind?
I can't explain it. Navigating without a compass, eyes waiting, started to wonder. Metamorphosis, the loss of who you thought you was.
When your kid can't find the language, help them find the lyrics. Listen to the Sound It Out album and get tips and tools to start a conversation at sounditouttogether.org. Brought to you by Ad Council and Pivotal Ventures.
Tired of all those talking heads down the dial who think they're always right?
People need to just calm down. It's gotten ridiculous.
Welcome to WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Quite frankly, I get most of my news from you.
This is WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
You are listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few spotty flurries at times here for today. Partial sunshine develops with temperatures holding rather steady. Winds out of the west around 10 to 15 miles per hour, gusting as high as 25. Tonight, decreasing cloud cover and a low near 15. By Tuesday, sunshine, high of 26 degrees. Wednesday, sunny skies, a high of 38. Thursday, chance for rain late, a high of 45. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 27.
This is Ron Whittingham, and I'm co-owner of Megan Financial, an independent retirement and financial services firm here in Chicago. We've built our business on playing the long game, teaching financial literacy to our clients to prepare them for a great future and a dignified retirement. Investments, pensions, 401ks, they're all pretty complicated. We make sure that you understand it all. Give us a call at 708-444-1090. We're Megan Financial, and we're your partners in a happy retirement. Or visit us at megent.com.
Securities and advisory services offered through Cetera Advisors LLC, member of FINRA SIPC, a broker-dealer and a registered investment advisor. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity. The views depicted in this broadcast are general in nature and provided for informational use only. The views are not necessarily those of Cetera Advisors LLC. They should not be considered as specific investment or tax advice. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. Keep in mind that investing involves risk, including loss of principal. Investment decisions should be based upon an individual's own goal, time horizon, and tolerance for risk. Consult your investment and/or tax professional regarding your unique situation.
What's one of your favorite memories?
That's a tough question. Well, there was this one time I went camping with my parents in a forest back when I was maybe like 8 or 9. And I can remember one night we were laying out in our hammocks and we were just, watching the trees rustling in the wind above us, and we could hear the sounds of the forest all around us. Frogs singing and owls calling.
Sending Senator Turner, Attorney Patillo, Attorney Hoffler, and Reverend Thurston through.
At all. I don't know if I do it justice trying to describe it, but I'll definitely never forget it.
Oh, I didn't know you were getting that. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, honey, it's okay. I'm glad I'm getting it because I like to hear. Hey, Senator Turner.
Hey, good morning, SJ.
How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Oh, honey, now you don't look so crazy now, do you?
1 minute, everybody.
No, I do not.
Although you are nuts, but that's another story for another day.
That's a whole different. That's a different crazy.
Well, that's different crazy, and that's my girlfriend crazy.
Who are my colleagues this morning?
You have got Attorney C.K. Hoffler, who you should keep on speed dial, always former president of the National Bar Association. And
I sure should.
Of course, she's the chair of Rainbow Push. And you got Dwight McKee. You were asking for him.
Dwight McKee hasn't answered yet.
Oh, okay. We got Attorney Robert Patillo, National Leadership Team of Rainbow Push. You got to be on his show if you haven't been already. And you got to be on his show. It's on WAOK. It's just Buck Wild. Okay. So
10 seconds.
But we love it. And who else do I have here?
We have Reverend Thurston, Attorney Hoffler, Attorney Patillo, and Senator Turner. And we're coming up.
Reverend Thurston was almost.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
To a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It is just a few days after Thanksgiving, just a few weeks before Christmas. Can you believe the year is already moving forward? Hey, I'm Santita Jackson coming to you on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, and YouTube. Meet my family over here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. That's right. I've got, Robert, Andre, Gary. Oh my goodness, how many of you are Joyce and Laura and Mark and Miss Wanda in North Carolina and Barbara in Oak Park, Jewel up there in New York, sending you all so much love today. Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia, never forget that. And everybody, please call us at 773-763, hey Renee and Yolanda at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. What do you make of this $100 million fund, which we talked about, that AIPAC has set up to go after progressives, particularly the Squad? Indeed, The Intercept said they are targeting Black progressives in particular. And well, if you don't believe it, look at Hill Harper. Of course, Hill Harper is this tremendous, this tremendous actor. We've been watching Hill Harper develop down through the years. Everybody loves Hill Harper. Got a little bit of crush on him too. And he's a brilliant young man. He is a classmate from Harvard Law School of President Obama's. Did you know that? Yeah. Harvard-trained lawyer, but a really progressive young brother. And he is out here. He's been a union organizer. He always does that. And you didn't know that this actor, who's won the NAACP Image Award down through the years, this author, how many of us knew that he was so brilliant and so prepared. And so now he's running for the U.S. Senate in Michigan. And Senator Stabenow is retiring. And he got a call. He kept it confidential. He said there's no need to talk about it, but it leaked. So it is now out here. Well, it turns out that a prominent supporter of AIPAC offered him $20 million. $20 million to abandon his U.S. Senate campaign and to run against Rashida Tlaib. $20 million just from him alone to get Rashida Tlaib out of that seat. So what do you think about that, everybody? Lyndon Nelson, who was a prominent entrepreneur up in Michigan, he's been heavily involved in AIPAC for years. He's donated to Democrats and Republicans. That's why I tell you, as we talk about, the parties, no. People who have their interests, they do not pay attention to parties. This is about power. And they use each party so they can flex their power. You need to understand that. All I ask is that if you're going to be a Black Republican, flex for me in that space. And I'm going to flex for us over here. How about that? If you're going to be an independent, if you're going to be in the Green Party, just fight the good fight wherever you are. But it was a $20 million offer. It came October 16th. After Rashida Tlaib joined Cori Bush and others in introducing this resolution that Jonathan Jackson is a part of, to back the immediate de-escalation and ceasefire in Gaza. So this man decided to go after her, not just this man, this mechanism. And we saw this as we've seen in many other races, but perhaps we didn't recognize it, but we saw it with Nina Turner. Many of us expected her to go to Congress. She had a commanding lead until this so-called dark money came into her campaign. Wow. So let's talk about this with Nina Turner. And of course, we have got Attorney Robert Patillo. We have got, of course, he is National Leadership Team of Rainbow Push, host of his own show on WAOK every Sunday from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time out of Atlanta. You've got Attorney C.K. Hoffler. Of course, she has a segment on this show, but she also has her own show on WAOK every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. And she's the chair of Rainbow Push and the former president of the National Bar Association. We're so excited to have her. We're excited to have Dwight McKee, brilliant social scientist, and Reverend Stephen Thurston, pastor of the New Covenant Missionary Baptist Church here in Chicago. He and his family have held that pastorate for about 90 years. And he's very, very active in the community and has been very active in building bridges with the Black and Muslim and the Black and Jewish communities. So I'm really glad that he's here today. But why don't you start us off, Senator Turner? And what do you make of this story? $20 million, Senator Nina Turner. Whoa.
Yeah, well, I mean, good morning, everybody. On that note, I mean, you laid it out, SJ. This is really about power. And oftentimes, everyday people just trying to make it through their lives are not tuned into this kind of stuff until we bring it to their attention. So I definitely salute you for covering stories like this so that the everyday people can get an understanding. Just absolute power corrupts absolutely. And as you laid out, a lot of big money donors, not all, but a lot of big money donors, if their only conviction is power, then they do donate to both sides of the aisle. And that's why the corporatist wings of both parties are dangerous to democracy, and they're dangerous to the needs, the wants, the desires, and the dreams of everyday people. Yes, my race, the special election in 2021, in May of 2021, I was 30 points ahead of my competitor, 30 points ahead of my competitor. And then DMFI, which is an arm, the Democratic Majority for Israel, jumped in on behalf of my major competition. There are several people in that race, but it really came down to two of us. And not only that, this person put what is known as a red box on their website. I just want the listeners to know that when you are not supposed to legally, air quotes, coordinate with PACs, but you can send them signals see, loophole in the law. So I know the attorneys on here can just break that down, loophole in the law. And what my competitor did was put a message on her website to signal to them what she wanted them to go after me for. All legal, air quotes, all legal. And so you have a situation where these two groups now want to spend $100 million to go after primarily squad members, primarily Black people, primarily Black women. Although there's an asterisk, they will go after Jewish people as well if they don't deem them sufficiently Jewish. They went after Congressman Andy Levin, defeating him. They went after Senator Bernard Sanders right after his heart attack, sisters and brothers and family and friends. The man wasn't upright for a hot minute, and they went after him on his age. They never go after you over Israel or Palestine because they know that does not really resonate with the regular voter. They'll find something and go after you for, but internally they'll go after you on those particular issues. I can tell you that my Jewish allies sent me emails of just a whole group of Jewish people fundraising off of me all over the country to try to defeat me, calling me everything but a child of God. And you know why they did that? Only because I would not disavow the squad. And I was told by a prominent Jewish businessman in Cleveland that if I did not disavow the squad, that they were going to come at me with everything that they had, and that Palestinians had no rights that Israel had to recognize. And because I was not willing to do those things, not willing to sell my soul, not willing to go against what I believe is in the interest of both Israelis and Palestinians, they did just that. And they had the help of, so it wasn't just DMFI and AIPAC, they also had the help of prominent Republicans. 4,000 Republicans crossed over in that special election primary to vote for my competitor. And then they also had mainline neoliberals like Congressman Hakeem Jeffries and others, Richie Torres and others who came into this district. Beating me was so important that the president of the United States endorsed this woman, and he didn't know her from Adam. That's how important it was for them to defeat me. So I ran in 2021 for a special election, and then I ran again in 2022 for the regular election cycle. And by the time we got to 2022, it was like 8 months later, they had perfected how to come at me. And now you can see they're using the same tool to go at progressives primarily who are standing up for peace. That's their only crime here, is that they're standing up for peace.
Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. What do you make of this $20 million? Yes.
So just one other point I want to make, and just because they will be on social media, AIPAC and DMFI saying, "Oh, we support Democrats." I want y'all to know AIPAC supported 106 Republicans who denied that Biden won the election. I want you to underline it, bold it, underscore. Okay, going back to what Sister SJ, what you said was so profound. This is about power. Let me put that there. My second point is that these organizations should be made to file as foreign interests. We talk about that because their only interest is not what matters to the people in Ohio or Illinois or California. Pick your state. It's what matters to the interest of the state of Israel. So they don't care at all about what poor Black, brown, or white people need in the greater Cleveland area, for example. So I want you to understand that. And then my third point, it doesn't matter that they got Black faces on the other side, because what they will say is that we support Blacks, we support progressives. You can't call us anti-Black. No, I'm calling you anti-Black, but because you come in here and you use other Black people who allow themselves to be used, let me say this, as a shield, so that when we bump up against you and expose the organizations for what they are, they will stand up and say, "We're not anti-Black. We supported." They said that to me both on social media. "We supported a Black woman against you." So what you did was you took away the opportunity of the people of the 11th congressional district to make a judgment call without your money infiltrating and diluting and disparaging. That's what they did. Now, they didn't hit me in public on Israel-Palestine. What they hit me on public was that I was not sufficiently loyal to the Democratic Party and to this president. And because I told the truth in a very animated way about this person becoming president, and I have turned out to be prophetic. That's what they use. They use the angry black woman trope. And what I want to say to the black community in particular, and then everybody else that's just listening in on the barbecue, we don't always have to agree or support the same candidates, but what we should not do is allow any outside force, and I mean any, I don't care who they are, to come into our communities and decide who's going to be our leaders. Let's duke it out. Candidates should do everything to win. They should do everything to win, but not anything to win. And that's what this turned out to be, anything to win. And now we see that this strategy that they have used is percolating all over the country. $100 million just because those Congress members are advocating for peace.
Well, Robert Patillo, what do you make of this?
Can I tag into her?
Robert Patillo. Well, wait, was that you, Pastor Thurston? Go for it. What?
It was. She made a key point, and from the religious space, I see this happen all the time, where we have black pastors who gather together other black ministers and church members to take them to Israel, and all of these trips are sponsored.
That's right. What do you mean?
And so they do this, as she said. I'll get a call from a pastor. Hey, man, you want to take 20 of your members with me over to Israel? It's a free trip or a highly reduced trip. We're being sponsored. They're going to take care of us. They're going to treat us well. They're going to introduce us to people. And we see this happen. I've seen this happen over my 25 years of pastoral ministry on a regular basis, on a yearly basis. And they get these pastors in their pockets. So when issues like our current issue is at hand, we have these pastors that will go on their pulpits, go on their social media platforms, and preach and push propaganda supporting Israel, ignoring everything that Israel has done and continues to do to harm and to hurt people, innocent men, women, children. And so they built this base here. So again, they got blackface supporting and pushing their negative ways. I'll say it that way to be nice.
Well, so what is the payoff for these pastors?
Oh, money to your nonprofit, help to build your community center, money in your pocket. It's the same play at the political level that just comes down to the pastoral level.
Whew. Wow. Robert Patillo?
And
No, Pastor Thurston, please continue. Because many of us
it
don't.
censors the voice of the black. It censors the prophetic voice of the black preacher. That's what it does. It makes him a eunuch in the pulpit.
Tell it. Go ahead, Pastor.
Did you see that in your race?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. A whole bunch of black preachers got together and bumped up against me, even though they knew in their hearts that what DMFI and AIPAC was doing was wrong. They knew what was being said about me was wrong. They did exactly what the pastor said. And also over the course of my political career, I have been invited to go just what Pastor is describing right now. And I'm so glad that I never did. Want to sponsor you, want to get you there. And we're going to show you what they want you to see. So that then Pastor hit it. Hey, he already preached the sermon, but absolutely. Preachers did that in my race. And I was also invited, as many of these elected officials. If you ask them, these elected officials who are backed by AIPAC and DMFI, the Democratic Majority for Israel, most of them, 9 out of 10, they have been invited and had a trip paid, or as the pastor said, significantly reduced for them to go over to Israel. And then when they come back here, they've already been indoctrinated and they won't say a word, even in the face of things that cannot be excused. Like this moment right now, they still will not stand up and do the right thing.
Robert Patillo. Your thoughts?
And on that same note, we see this happen with members of the media also, where if you start becoming a prominent voice in media on either the Democratic or the conservative side, you'll start getting emails inviting you on these trips to Israel, inviting you to conferences, all paid trips to Las Vegas, in order to attend the speaking section with APAC, etc. So do those voices become propaganda pieces in the media to parrot those same lies, to parrot that same propaganda, and to push this idea that there can be no two sides to the argument, no two sides to the voice. As has been said, you have to follow the money in these situations, and particularly for these quote-unquote squad members, which I don't understand why it's a derisive term. They're bumping up against not just the Israeli lobby, but also the military-industrial complex lobby. The military-industrial complex wants nothing more than to sell more bombs to Israel, to sell more bombs to Ukraine, to sell more fighter jets, etc. So when you're talking about a ceasefire of peace, you're talking about taking money out of their pockets. They're pushing up against the American imperial lobby, which wants a bigger American footprint around the world. And so when we're looking at these situations, this is why progressive voices are so important, why grassroots progressive voices are so important, because they are the only mechanism by which we have to push back against the massive amounts of money that are pushing for globalism, that are pushing for eternal warfare, and that are pushing for this conceptualization of European imperialism and colonialism existing in a new way and a new voice going forward. The only thing keeping the European continent alive is the continued colonial power that exists throughout the developing world, Israel being a prime example of this. And we have to stand up and say we're going to have a new world order where everyone has equal rights. It cannot simply be in name only. It also has to be in practice. And that's what these members of Congress are standing up and doing, is where the community has to support them.
Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Tracy, I want to get your question, but I need you to, if you could clarify it for me so that I can ask it. Ashley King worked on your campaign. Now, Ashley is in Memphis, and said that, you're right, you were 30 points plus ahead in the polls, and then you literally could not buy any TV spots, Nina Turner, because they'd all been bought out. Wow. Attorney C.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, is that what happened?
I mean, part of it. I mean, SJ, you and I in the panel, and I'm just loving this. I mean, we could talk about this, the contours of this. There's a lot of contours to this, and I'll leave many layers to this. And I am going to write about this in great detail at some point. But sister is absolutely right.
Well, hey, I want you to call us at 773-763-9278. Attorney C.K. Hoffler. Pam, just hold on a minute, honey. I've got 2 minutes. Attorney C.K. Hoffler.
Good morning. Santita, I want to put this in the context very briefly of the international community. So there's a Foreign Corrupt Practices Act where you're not able as a U.S. citizen to try to, bribe if you have contracts overseas. You're not able to bribe or to give money as incentive to winning a contract, a foreign government official or anything like that. That's illegal. And in many countries, we've criticized many countries that have had a system where you basically, it's a pay to play. You want a contract, you come in, you're a French company, where it was not heretofore illegal to offer incentives to government officials. You're bidding on a contract in let's just say Gabon, hypothetically, you pay, you put up front, hey, let me give you 50,000 euros or 100,000 euros, just for you and your family. And by the way, wink, wink, we want to win this contract, and you win the contract. You have an American citizen who tries to do the same, and it's illegal. So the reason why I raised that is because this really demonstrates the hypocrisy of our system here. The only difference now, so this is the way it's always been. The only difference now is that it's coming to light. The only difference now is that we do have a Nina Turner who can talk about, this is what happened to me, and this is how it manifests. The only difference now is that we have a very divided country. We know this from the last presidential elections, but we also have a very divided country as it relates to the war in Gaza. So what we are seeing is a manifestation of what has always been business and part of the political machinery. We just didn't see it targeting African American progressives in such a in-your-face, slap you way. That's the difference. And the other difference, I believe, is that people are now feel more empowered to speak against this, to say something about it. Information is power. Knowledge is power. So while this is technically not illegal, it's not illegal to do this in this country. The question is whether this is the type of democracy that we want. There may not be anything illegal about it, but you have to look a lot of times at the moral fabric of this. We had a faith leader who spoke about this. What is it doing for our communities? And you have to look at people who are representing our communities and what they stand for. So I think this is unfortunate, to say the least. I applaud Nina Turner for speaking up and speaking out about this and being an example of how it can work. And I think it's important for people to know that this happens, because that's also the difference. We did not know, many people did not know this is how our system of government operates, because it really is, Santita. This is not a new book. It's not a new playbook. It's not a new page from a playbook. It's just now it's more visible and people are recognizing that this is what's happening. And they can ask themselves, well, it seems like it's illegal. No, it's not illegal. In our country of government, it is not illegal. I go back to the discussion of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. What is illegal is it's illegal because it doesn't benefit U.S. interests in the way that Congress wants it to benefit U.S. interests. So that's when things are illegal. But this is perfectly legal. It may not be, in many minds, legitimate. It may not be fair. It may not be morally where we need to be, but it's legal in this country. And that's what I think we need to focus on. If you want change the legality of some laws that allow things like this to happen to the expense of a group that's being targeted, meaning progressive African-American leaders.
Call me at 773-763-9278. Stay right there, Nina Turner. You can't leave just yet. I know you got to go flex because she is the flyest glamour there is, but you just wait 1 minute because I want you to at least open us up on the other side. 773-763-9278. Pam, don't leave. I'm going to bring you up as soon as we get on the other side. On the Santita Jackson Show on WCPT 820 and AM 950 Radio and YouTube, the Santita Jackson Show. Stay right there. Woo. You guys, there is a lot going on. You all want to continue to chat?
Santita?
Is Dwight there?
Yes, Dwight's there, but
Okay.
Santita?
Okay. Yes.
We may have to either grab Pam or let some people go because we only have one open phone line right now, and we have 3 guests we have to add on.
What we'll do? How long can you stay with me, Stephen Thurston? You said a whole lot.
I got about 15 more minutes.
Okay, I'm going to let you close out here, but can you come back in another day or so?
Yes.
I need you to go and you dropped a whole lot. And I think that we need to talk about, I didn't know that you were going to do all that, but that needs to happen. No, but we need to have that talk, because the thing is, I don't have a problem with Israel advocating for Israel. I don't. I think that they ought to be able to do that, but you got to be honest about it. AIPAC needs to register as a foreign agent, which is what Nina Turner just said, and just say, this is my advocacy is for this. It's not for defeating poverty in the United States. It's not for public schools, funding them in the United States. It's not for anything in the United States. It's for what's happening over here. And I think you've got to, you got to be honest about that.
Sure. But there's a difference between advocacy and buying off politicians or trying to knock off politicians. I don't have a problem with the advocacy either. Obviously, the advocacy is working because they get billions of dollars set aside from America every year. So that's advocacy. But trying to interfere in American elections to the detriment of the communities that need to be able to have requisite debates so that they can choose the right leader for their specific district, for their specific needs. What I have a problem is that what they do is try to supersede the needs because they don't care. I mean, I had some leaders tell me that they don't care, that me and my opponent were interchangeable on domestic policy, and that they do enough for the Black community. Can you imagine this? Can you imagine Black people sitting down a Jewish candidate and saying that stuff to them? Fill it in, because that ain't what I wanted to say. So this ain't advocacy at this point. This is flat out, we are going to buy off politicians or knock off politicians depending on where they stand on a foreign country, not where they stand for the needs of their particular communities. Half of Cleveland's children go to sleep at night hungry, but yet we got money for bombs. They can't get properly educated, but we got money for bombs. Black American descendants of enslaved people have been asking for reparations for generations. America ain't got that, but they got money for bombs. So you got the Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, when asked the question, can America afford these two wars, meaning Israel and Ukraine, and she said yes and didn't flinch. Kids got lunch debt and breakfast debt in school, but we got money for bombs. So at a certain point, we got to call this what it is. It ain't advocacy. It's buying off or knocking off politicians.
Well, that's what the Intercept's headline says, that they are also specifically targeting Black progressives, but they also,
that's it.
But in the article, they also amplified that the CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus that I knew as a child, is not the same. And more than half of their members now, they're top funders or they're heavily funded by AIPAC. So there's that.
That's right.
You got a whole lot going on here, right?
That's it. And they throw away what is in the best interest. See, the Black Caucus existed, SJ, you know this better than me, for the interest of Black people. Mm-hmm. But you got Black people in that Black Caucus, in air quotes, and I'm not saying we all got to think the same. What I am saying is that the Black Caucus was created to champion the interests of Black people. Yeah. They no longer do that. Hell, they might as well not even exist. And I'm not talking about, because there are some individuals in that Black Caucus who understand the assignment.
Sending Ari Bloomcats through.
The majority of them don't give a care about the assignment, starting with the leader of the House Democrats, Hakeem Jeffries, number one.
Well, I want to introduce you to Ari Bloomcats. He is the executive editor of In These Times magazine. And I got him, I'm connecting with you, Mr. Bloomcats, and thank you so much for being with us today. You're hearing former state Senator Nina Turner, the one of the top spokespersons for Senator Bernie Sanders. And I welcome you to the show, and you're on with Pastor Stephen Thurston. They'll all be great sources for the articles that you write. And he is the pastor of one of the most prominent Black churches in the world, actually, New Covenant Missionary Baptist Church. They've held on to that pulpit 90 years. Dwight McKee, brilliant social scientist, National Action Network, Operation Push. Indeed, he's one of the founding members of Operation Push. The chair of Rainbow Push Coalition internationally is Attorney C.K. Hoffler. She is court TV legal analyst, and she is also the past national president of the largest and oldest Black Bar Association in the world. And Robert Patillo from the national leadership team of Rainbow Push, who is the host of his own show. Hope you can do that sometime on WAOK, which is the iconic Black talk radio station out of Atlanta. He's on from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time every Sunday. Welcome to the show, Ari. How are you?
Hi, thanks so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be here with you and everyone else.
Oh, look, you're family now, so let it all go. We're going to have a great time. I know he's like, what have I walked into? You walked into, this is what we do and how we do it. How about that?
Excellent.
Oh, my goodness. I'm glad you're here, but I'm glad that you're hearing Nina Turner and what she went through during her campaign for the U.S.
60 seconds, everybody.
But it was no different, as I shared with you, Nina, than what Reverend Jackson went through in his campaign in '84 and '88. You know, um, the targeting of black progressives uh, by the right wing, quite frankly, in the corporatist ring of the Israeli lobby, because I can't help but lift up Carolyn Kasdan and so many of our Jewish allies, Mark Weiner, God rest his soul, people who came out for Reverend and who've come out for like your Jewish allies, and they have taken hits for standing with progressives, but that's what they've done.
Oh yeah, no, you're right about that, SJ, and it's important to make that
10 seconds, everybody.
because we do have Jewish sisters and brothers who are standing up and pushing back against the right wing.
Yeah.
Right wing, you're right. It's the right wing.
It's the right
Yeah.
wing.
We can
That's
change
right.
the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Please meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel as we talk about AIPAC and its targeting of black progressives. That is a headline from The Intercept magazine, and looking at Hill Harper, the brilliant young actor. You've seen him on CSI New York. He's acted off Broadway. Very popular young man who's also a Harvard trained lawyer. He's Barack Obama's classmate. That's how I know him. And I'm trying to get him on the show in the next couple of days. And an AIPAC supporter, a very prominent AIPAC entrepreneur, Lyndon Nelson out of Michigan, said, you know what? I know you're running for the U.S. Senate. You want to replace Debbie Stabenow, and he's having, some challenges getting traction and raising money. But he's up against, Alyssa Slotkin, who is a sitting member of Congress, and that gives you a tremendous amount of power. She's raising a lot of money, has a tremendous profile, former CIA too, as by the way. Well, that having been said, this man called him out of the blue and said, "Look, why don't you drop out of that race and run against Rashida Tlaib? I'll give you $20 million to do it." Whoa, $20 million. You do know that the money that you don't spend in a campaign goes right into your pocket. It can. So we need to talk about that, because now the Congressional Black Caucus, you're seeing a fight within the Congressional Black Caucus, because now more than half of the Congressional Black Caucus, they are heavily funded by AIPAC. So the Congressional Black Caucus, the progressive Congressional Black Caucus that we knew 20, 30, 40 years ago, well, that's changed. So let's talk about that today. And we saw it so clearly in Nina Turner's campaign. We saw it in Summer Lee's campaign. She fought tooth and nail to get that seat out of Pennsylvania. Jamal Bowman, we saw it there. You just keep seeing it over and over and over again. And now there's $100 million set aside by AIPAC to go after these progressives. The Intercept said specifically it's black progressives. So what do you think about that? I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. Let me get a couple of these headlines out the way. Thankfully, Hamas released dozens of hostages this weekend. Israeli women and children, including 4-year-old American Israeli Abigail Edan, and many prisoners who have not been charged, by the way, who are Palestinian. They were released also. Good for them. 3 Palestinian students, sadly, were injured in a shooting. They were shot. A gunman approached them as they were wearing their keffiyeh and the Palestinian scarf. And they were shot at close range 4 times before he fled. This 48-year-old man has been arrested. President Biden will skip a leader summit on climate talks in Dubai this week. Derek Chauvin, of course, in 2020, he was convicted of the 2020 murder of George Floyd. Well, he was seriously injured in Arizona on Friday. Whatever you think about that, and of course, what we saw was horrific. You certainly pray for his recovery and pray for his family's comfort, everyone. In Chicago, we're going to have a high. It's chilly today, everybody. A high of 28 degrees, partly sunny. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 23 degrees, sunny. In the NFL, Chicago will be playing the Vikings tonight. Who you got? AM 950 radio. Chicago's WCPT. Oh, it's going to be great. In the NBA, the Nets 118, the Bulls 109. But the Timberwolves were triumphant, 119-97 over the Grizzlies. In the NHL, the Blues 4, Chicago 2, the Red Wings 4, and the Wild 1. And those are some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. Pastor Stephen Thurston, I know you are running. So what was the point that you wanted to make? I mean, because you gave us some information that many of us did not know, how we think that that AIPAC and this Israeli lobby is just pushing on the political front, but you're saying, no, they're coming into the church. Is it under the aegis of Christian Zionism? How are they doing it? And particularly the Black church, because the Black church moved the needle on this through Reverend Jackson and his advocacy of Israeli security and Palestinian rights in the late 70s and 80s, right? So talk to me.
There's a muting of the moral voice of the Black pulpit, and many Black pulpits have actually been turned into plantations because money has come in, money from different entities, organizations, and individuals that don't have the best interests of Black people at heart. And so with this particular issue that's been raised today, we see individuals and organizations sponsoring Black pastors to gather other Black pastors or parishioners from their various churches to come to Israel to be shown a particular picture of Israel and then sent back to the United States to serve as advocates and allies. And so when issues like what we currently see happening in the Middle East take place, we have Black preachers who will not use their moral voice to tear down what's happening to hurt, harm, and hinder innocent people, but instead will support it, and then will try to bastardize the Bible to back up this erroneous position that's being held and taken. And so we have to be mindful, as the seasoned saints would say, all our skin folk ain't our kinfolk, and that's even happening in the Black pulpit.
Wow. Nina Turner, I know you're running with us. You're running today. What statement do you want to make?
I think for people to just be aware, and when you know better, we got to do better. I mean, in the face of such atrocities, leave no doubt that what Hamas did on October the 7th was horrendous, immoral, and illegal. No doubt about it. No doubt. And nobody that has a moral consciousness would say that it was okay what they did. So if they're saying it's okay, then they don't have a moral consciousness. It's not okay. And it is not okay what Israel is doing to innocent Palestinians, more than half of them women and children. But I don't even want to qualify. You know, it's just amazing to me. I think when we elevate the children, because in some ways, you know, it just goes against all that a conscious-minded, loving person. You know, when you see children suffering, you would expect that adults would have even more care and compassion. And what we're seeing, that a lot of people on the totally pro-Israel side, they don't have the same compassion for Palestinian children. We don't, for me, the cries of anybody's children, whether they're Israeli, Palestinian, African, Haitian, doesn't matter to me. Nobody's children should have to endure what the children in the Gaza are enduring right now, and how Gaza is almost unrecognizable. And think about the money and the efforts it's going to take to try to physically rebuild the Gaza. But what about psychologically rebuilding the Gaza? And the fact that, and I think it was attorney C.K. Hopler who laid this out when on the other side, is that that people are in the knowledge now. And so because we know more, and because of people like you, SJ, and others, the Intercept and other independent media who are really just giving people the full picture, we have got to stand up strong against this type of immoral injustice. You can be pro-Israel or pro-Israeli for their justice and their peace, and also be pro-Palestinian for their justice and their peace too. I mean, these things are not mutually exclusive, because for both peoples to truly have justice and peace, both peoples have to have justice and peace. There's no way around it. And if anybody says that it is okay, rationalizing this kind of stuff, that Hamas is using Palestinians as human shields. Okay, if that is true, does that justify you then going in there just indiscriminately killing these people? If you know that it's wrong and you do it anyway, people need to know that some of those tunnels that they're finding, they were there before the Palestinians had control of the Gaza. All of those tunnels are not new. So when they show you footage that they see tunnels in the hospital, duh. So we gotta open up our knowledge base. But actually, one thing should be not up for debate, which is we should all agree that innocent lives should not be taken. People should not be slaughtered. They should not be collective punishment for any group of people, for any reason. And that is what is happening in the Gaza. What are the estimates now? Over 20,000 people dead. How many more people got to die? And yes, I'm so glad that they're releasing hostages on both sides. And then both sides are saying after this, we going back to fighting.
Crazy.
Well, then what are you releasing the hostages into? It just doesn't make sense. This is a moral question right now. Call the moral question right now. Because this could be any of us and any of our children. And guess what? We will all be impacted by this one way or the other for a lifetime and for the lifetime of our children and our children's children. This has been going on for decades, right? This back and forth. And it'll be decades more unless people have the intestinal fortitude to stand up for a type of truth and justice that has no respect of person. And we have a president and a Congress, by and large, with the exception of those who signed on to the ceasefire, who are aiding and abetting the slaughter of innocent Palestinians.
And it imperils the security of Israelis. Nobody's safe until everybody is safe. Nobody's going to be safe. I mean, you got to stop. That's why you have a ceasefire. Phyllis Bennis calls for a ceasefire on both sides. You got to stop. When police come in to stop a conflict, they say, everybody stop. I don't care who did what. Stop. 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 I want you to call us at 773-763-9278. Ari and Dwight, before I get to you, let me go to Pam. Pam has been holding for a minute. Pam, I don't want you to burst. What's going on, Pam?
Hi, Santita. Thank you. My first thing is this. As a Black person, I believe that Black people have the right to defend ourselves. And I think we need to stop Black hate, anti-Black, all of it. I just wanted to make those statements. Okay. I'm really concerned about what I'm hearing with AIPAC. Because I'm concerned, Santita, not only have they, infiltrated politics and churches, they're also, I think, doing some work with getting into the community activist realm, if you will. And so that concerns me as well. But Santita, you and the panel could speak to this because you're talking about the influence. I believe they also did the same thing, AIPAC. Did the same thing to Representative Donald Lewis, I believe. I can't remember what state. And did they also do the same thing to Representative Gus Savage, Santita?
Yes.
Was that a play into it as well? I think that was right.
He announced it when he gave a speech that was embracing of Palestinian rights. And he said, this speech will probably get me put out of Congress. And it did.
Sure.
And that was 30 years ago.
Yes. So my question, as always, what is it that we're going to do or to counteract what AIPAC does, since they have so much power and so much money? And also, let me ask each of you this, because I'm feeling some kind of way about the Jewish community and being our allies. And I know the history with Black and Jewish people, and I appreciate that. But however, I'm not anti-Semitic or Jewish when I have constructive criticism. But I am going on record, Santita, I am anti-Zionist, as I understand what Zionism is and their belief. So I'm concerned, is AIPAC led by Zionism. We know that Netanyahu, I think, is a Zionist. And I think that is a concern of many Black people. Can't speak for all, but that's a concern. And also, here's another question. There was a report, and I haven't heard it again.
Hold on, because you got a lot. Hold on, because in fact, I want to bring on Ari. I want you to jump in here. Ari Bloomkatz, who is the executive editor of In These Times magazine, one of my favorite magazines ever. But I want to say this. I think we got to be very, very careful, because every Jewish person is not a Zionist. And you're looking at the right wing, because this is the right wing that came after Reverend tried to destroy his campaign. That is not the Jewish community is not monolithic. And so that's why I've given a space to, if not now, Jewish Voice for Peace and CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, because a lot of people have a lot of different feelings about all of this. And so we have to be very, very careful. But I think that you're asking the right questions now, because we have to be very specific, because, we need to understand the influences in our politics. Stay right there, Pam. But Ari, excuse me, please help me. And you've heard her, and I want you to speak to that, just as one of our young Jewish brothers who does so much brilliant writing In These Times magazine. Because now all of these questions are bubbling up, questions that we didn't really ask even before October 7th. Ari?
Absolutely. And thanks again for having me on. I mean, I think one of the core issues here, and one of the core issues at the center of AIPAC's attacks on candidates, is this conflation of anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. And when we see that conflation, we see it weaponized against candidates. We generally see it weaponized against candidates of color, and we see it weaponized against the progressives in the Jewish community who are calling for a ceasefire right now. And, the Anti-Defamation League, AIPAC, and other pro-Israel groups are pushing this narrative as strong as they possibly can, because they are deeply terrified of the fact that there could be a progressive Jewish left, and there is a progressive Jewish left that is demanding that this violence not be done in our name, that is demanding that this violence stop and that there is an immediate ceasefire. And that's one of the reasons why yesterday we saw an action on the Manhattan Bridge in New York, where the Manhattan Bridge was blocked for hours and hours and hours. That was led in part by Jewish Voice for Peace, along with other allies, including Linda Sarsour and many other folks. That's why in Chicago, we saw Jewish Voice for Peace, along with If Not Now, along with Never Again, blocking the Israeli consulate and shutting down the Ogilvie Transportation Center. That action was the largest action in the history of the Midwest of progressive Jews for Palestinian liberation. And what we're seeing from the ADL, what we're seeing from its CEO, Jonathan Greenblatt, and what we're seeing from other right-wing leaders in the Israeli and Jewish community is this effort to marginalize progressive Jews, this effort to push progressive Jews to the fringe as much as possible. As wild, they can be seen as nut jobs, so that they can be seen as not valid and illegitimate. And what we're seeing over and over again is that the progressive Jewish left and the progressive left in general in this country absolutely refuses to be marginalized. They absolutely refuse to be put in that place. And I think that, one of the things we're talking about with Congresswoman Tlaib here is someone else that refuses to be marginalized. Congresswoman Tlaib refuses to remain silent. And AIPAC depends on that silence. AIPAC depends on trying to quiet its critics. And that's not going to happen here. We are entering a new time and a new era where this whole idea of being progressive except for Palestine will no longer be a thing. That's not going to be possible anymore after this. And that's one of the things that we're seeing on the progressive left and the progressive Jewish left right now.
Well, what about, I've got about a couple of minutes before we go to break, because there is a real attempt, and I want Dwight McKee to speak to this on the other side. There's a real push, Nina, for these progressive Jewish voices to be marginalized. And I mean, Ari, you take real hits within your community. You know, family. You know, you fall out with your family. You fall out with your synagogue. I mean, it's just there's a lot of pressure on you. 90 seconds.
There is a lot of pressure, and relationships and tensions can be a bit fraught right now. But I think overwhelmingly, what we're seeing over the last decade, what we're seeing right now, is that the new generation of Jews, younger Jews right now, are increasingly coming out in support of Palestine, are increasingly critical of Israel. There is a deep generational divide right now. And we are seeing movements in the American Jewish establishment right now as well. We are seeing, a lot of change and movement there. And so I think, while there is a situation where things are a bit fraught right now in some areas, we also are seeing something that we've never seen before. We are seeing a surge in uprise in progressive Jews calling for an immediate ceasefire, calling for Palestinian liberation that we've never seen before. And, up on our homepage right now is a great article by Sarah Lazar and Maya Schwendler that, talks about the history of Jewish anti-Zionism, which has a very long and established history, talks about the need to confront the violence of Israel's ethno-nationalist militarism right now. And that is something that is really not fringe anymore at all. That is something that has taken hold, and that is something that AIPAC, the Anti-Defamation League, and other pro-Israel groups are deeply, deeply fearful right now. And that's why you see them calling, if not now, and JVP, all sorts of wild, hateful things, because they are panicking right now. They are absolutely panicking, and they are absolutely afraid because they know they have lost the next generation of American Jews. They know that this next generation of American Jews and this next generation of American Jewish voters is not with them anymore.
Ari Bloomcat, stay right there, executive editor of In These Times, Dwight. I cannot wait to hear from you. And indeed, Jonathan Greenblatt, he's the head of the ADL, yes? He was there's a news story about him saying in a group call, he said, wait a minute, look, you guys, you don't understand the nature of this struggle. This is generational. We are losing this. So let's not conflate criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism, and let's not paint everybody in a corner. A lot of people feel a lot of different ways about this issue because of their life perspective. Stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in just a minute. Dwight, I know you're going to say something on the other side, but would you like to respond to Ari before we come back up? Is there anything that you said?
The other side.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay,
of course. Nina?
Yes, I'm still here.
Oh, no, sweetie. Do you want to say anything? Because we're on StreamYard now, so everybody can hear us, Ari, talking, doing the crosstalk, and people love it. Hey, Reverend Dr. Yeri, everybody loves it. Reverend Thurston, are you still there? He might have had to leave already. And I can hear Robert Patillo. Robert, you still there, sweetie?
Yes,
all right, sweetie.
I'm here.
But yes, CK, thank you. But CK, I wish you would. I'm
going to have to.
Can you give us a bite before you go? Before you go,
yes,
legally, because you said legal. This is all legal. What AIPAC is doing, it's legal. You didn't say it's ethical. You said no, it's legal. So you're saying that as the system is presently constructed, this is all legal. What they're doing.
Yes, it is. It is, and I think that's what's important for people to know, that this is what our system allows. I only use the example of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act because we couldn't do this in other countries without registering as a foreign agent, as a lobbyist. I've been a lobbyist for foreign governments. You have to register for the kind of advocacy. Whether you believe in it or not, it's a question of whether these actions would constitute actions lobbying on behalf of a foreign government.
Now, why do you
And
have to
there are,
register as a foreign agent or as an agent of a foreign government? Why?
because it has to be clear, it should be clear whose interests your advocacy is on behalf of whose interests, what government. Because you can't, for instance, as a foreign, you can't bribe or give money or induce U.S. government officials, for instance, members of Congress, the administration, to do your work. You have to register as a lobbyist on behalf of those interests, so that whoever you are approaching, they know exactly who you're representing, what you're doing, and why. That's you can't if you're a lobbyist on behalf, like I used to lobby on behalf of the Angolan government, for instance, on behalf of the Gabonese government, on behalf of Antigua and Barbuda, all of those things. You have to register so that members of Congress, so that and lobbying is a part of our American fabric, so that's legal. But you have to register on behalf. And by the way, there are registered lobbyists on behalf of the Israeli government. That's not illegal. Just like there are registered lobbyists on behalf of the Cuban government, for instance, a government that wasn't even recognized, and other governments throughout the world. There are registered lobbyists. People understand their lobbyists. What I think has the issues that we are discussing are when there are advocacy efforts.
60 seconds, everyone.
There's nothing wrong with advocacy, but it has to be. You've got to make sure that you lobby so that there's no improper exchange of monies, hands, all that kind of stuff. There are restrictions on what you can do as a registered agent on behalf of a foreign government. There certainly are restrictions.
And people
that's
need to know where
important.
you're
So the
coming
law-
from, right? Just
Absolutely,
let me know.
it's important.
Okay, yeah.
It's important. You just we need to know. So I think that's what it is. That's what it is. And so people having discussions like this, I think, are very helpful so that people understand what our system allows us to do, not illegal, but the issue is more of registering, I believe, as a
10 seconds.
foreign government.
Okay.
If that's what you are doing.
Stand by.
Everybody else has to.
Okay, well, CK, you need to come back and talk about that.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
To a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am crazy.
Has this been a loaded conversation today? Attorney Robert Patillo said Attorney C.K. Hoffler just left us and Reverend Stephen Thurston just left us. But boy, we're going to have to continue to revisit this. And of course, Senator Nina Turner stayed with us. I'm so glad that you did, because, I know when Reverend Thurston told us that, no, this is not just happening in politics, it's happening in our churches and on, and I've seen it. I think it's important for us to look at all of these influences that come into Americans' lives, because America is so important. Quincy Jones said, America's greatest contribution to the world is not our industrial might, but the culture, because everybody in the world meets here. There's something real special about this place. Whatever your feelings are about it, and we all have our critique, that doesn't mean we don't love it. And so you got to understand what's happening in America so that we can make America what it really is supposed to be, and in turn help the world get straightened out. We're so excited to have former Ohio State Senator Nina Turner with us. She had she took a tremendous hit from AIPAC. Many people feel that's why she's not in Congress now. Hill Harper, CSI New York, Get on the Bus, brilliant young actor. Of course, Harvard-trained lawyer. He and Barack Obama were classmates at Harvard Law School, a union organizer, and on and on and on. He is running for the U.S. Senate in Michigan. He got a call from a prominent supporter of AIPAC, a very wealthy businessman, Lyndon Nelson, who said, $20 million is yours if you leave this race and run against Rashida Tlaib and take her out. Wow. What do you make of that, everybody? Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Pam was making some brilliant points. Attorney C.K. Hoffler just made some brilliant points. Attorney Robert Till, you've made yours. Reverend Dr. Yeary, I'm going to get back to you. But Ari Bloomcats, executive editor of In These Times magazine, you were making brilliant points about, just about the fact that, there is a progressive community, and what we're watching are the actions of really a regressive Jewish community, a right-wing Jewish community, and they don't represent the Norman Solomons and the Jeff Cohens and you and If Not Now and on and Phyllis Bennis, and I can just keep on going on and on and on. There is another tradition, and indeed, stay right there, Ari, because that's something that Dwight McKee has talked about down through the years. Dwight McKee.
Well, this, what we have to understand is this is not new. This goes all the back when Rosenwald and Spingarn controlled black politics through the Urban League and the NAACP and used Du Bois to take out Marcus Garvey.
W.B. Du Bois.
And then when Du Bois lost his value, they took him out. And then they used Jackie Robinson and Roy Wilkins to take out Paul Robeson. And on and on. It's always been a tradition that there's a certain Jewish constituency who funds much of these projects in black community and black organizations, and they use that leadership to the advantage of themselves at the advantage of the black community. And when you don't toe the party line, then they really kind of pit us against each other. But the tragedy of it all is that, people can't buy your vote unless you sell it. And so it don't matter how much money that they bring to the table, if you're not willing to sell your vote to the highest bidder, then you're still in control. And our problem is that because of our want and our greed and our fear, that we sell our souls to the highest bidder. And so you see a situation like the Black Caucus, who really is a lobbying organization for a lobbying organization. They really are an extension of APEC. That's who they've come to be. And you see guys, where historically there have been some measure of integrity. Now it's an all outright sellout in behalf of a community that don't represent them or their constituency, because either they are afraid of the money going against them or they want the money for themselves, which is why I applaud Nina so much, is because she was unwilling to sell her integrity out for $1, where most of these guys, particularly in this generation, are not willing to do that. So once we understand that historically, much of our politics and much of our social policy and most of our civil rights organizations have been controlled by people who are not us, who are not operating in our interests, but use us for their own interests. Once we understand that and get past the fear of, what they can do to us or the money of what they can do for us, then we can really organize and work in behalf of ourselves. Ignorance is their greatest ally, because ignorance is their greatest ally, because we don't understand history and we don't understand process. And so we are manipulated, the pastors are manipulated, and the Christian church is manipulated by the pretext of Zionism, which is based on a historic pretext that these people have some birthright to Palestine. And scripturally, if you really understand the scriptures, you see that you can't justify that with the scriptures. And also the ignorance that we have, because we don't understand the history of the relationship between us and other ethnic organizations. Now, lastly, the reason I just don't fault APEC in the Jewish community is because almost every ethnic group uses us the same way. The Irish play us the same way. Anybody with any power that is playing power politics play us the same way. And so the same way the Zionists use us against the Palestinians, the Democratic Party uses us when our interests don't match their interests. And it's our ignorance and our greed and our fear that allows us to be used.
Well, speaking of ignorance, greed, and fear, Ari Bloomkatz, executive editor of In These Times magazine, it just seems like a lot of ignorance and fear. And I want Dr. Yuri and, of course, Nita Turner to jump in here. Ari, it's feeding a lot. We paint the Jewish community as a monolith. We don't understand the history. We don't understand how we're using each other and how the world is now a mess, Ari. Just, because this situation shows gaping holes in the political system. This is awful. This is awful. I mean, why AIPAC is not registered as a foreign agent? So we can just say, look, you advocate for Israel. You're not talking about poverty in America, public school funding, none of that. Healthcare, none of that. It's all off, Ari. I mean, so what do you think Jewish progressives can do to combat this, to deal with this issue? I mean, because Intercept said they're going after Black progressives. I mean, why? Why Black progressives, Ari?
Yeah, so I think, the first thing that I'd like to do is, return to something that Nina Turner said a little bit earlier in the conversation about the sanctity of life and of, the sanctity of innocent people. And, also on a side note, Ms. Turner was on the cover of In These Times last year in our May issue, in large part because of your courage. And thank you so much for being on the cover of the magazine there. There is a fundamental Jewish principle that says that if you take a life, it is like you have killed the entire world. And this is a fundamental Jewish principle. It is one of the principles we hold most sacred. It is one of the teachings that all Jews are taught growing up, that were taught in synagogue, that were taught as a social justice principle. And this Jewish teaching, this Jewish principle is being ignored, is being dismissed, is being desecrated and spit on by the Israeli government. As we're seeing so many thousand dead right now, as we're seeing so many thousands of dead Palestinian children right now, as we're seeing so many people still under rubble right now. And so what I want to argue is that what we're seeing right now from the Israeli government, what we're seeing right now from AIPAC in the Anti-Defamation League, and particularly from AIPAC, which is deeply, deeply out of touch with the American public, an American public that overwhelmingly wants a ceasefire right now. What I want to argue is that these are not Jewish organizations. These are pro-Israel organizations. These are Israel at all cost organizations. These are organizations and people that would rather align themselves with the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world than they would Jews who are working to uphold this principle that to take a life is to end the entire world. And so I think that, one of the things that we're seeing with the Hill Harper situation is something that really couldn't be any clearer. We hear that AIPAC has this stranglehold on Congress, but when I hear that AIPAC is, trying to throw $20 million at Hill Harper, when I hear AIPAC is about to throw $100 million at the squad, when I hear and we know that AIPAC spent more than $3 million trying to unseat Summer Lee, what I see is that AIPAC is a desperate organization that is failing desperately and has completely lost the next generation of voters and the next generation of American Jewish voters. So what do they do when they're doing this? They return to their old playbook and they move forward the only way they know how. They target people of color. They try and pit Jews against people of color. They try to stoke fears and racism in Jewish communities. They lean hard on Islamophobia and xenophobia and anti-Blackness. And ultimately, they try to buy their way out of their own mess. But it's not going to work. And what this moment is telling us, what everything we're seeing on the left since October 7th is telling us, is that this is not going to work, that the left refuses to be marginalized, that the progressive Jewish left refuses to be marginalized, and we will no longer accept the vilification of Muslims and Palestinians. And progressive Jews in particular are really understanding the importance of solidarity and being in solidarity with people of color. This is something that in progressive Jewish communities, which of course are multiracial communities themselves, talk about constantly and deeply, about the need to be in solidarity with others and about the need for safety through solidarity.
Nina Turner, your thoughts?
Just amening. Yeah, amen. I was on mute. Just amening everything that Chairman McKee said and Brother Ari as well. I mean, they between the both of them, they hit everything, just full circle. And I love it about, almost every, when Chairman McKee said almost every ethnic group plays us, meaning Black people, the same way. Oh my God. I mean, I could listen to that history lesson all day long. And when Brother Ari talked about, the whole notion of these groups like AIPAC or DMFI, Democratic Majority for Israel, Israel at all cost organizations. And that is a key point, all costs. And when I think about this issue, besides, what happened to me, and thank you, Ari, for in these times and so many other of our progressive Jewish sisters and brothers who have been by my side and who are still right by my side. I mean, I was just with Medea Benjamin a week ago on Friday in New York, together with her and some other progressive Jewish people and progressive Muslim or Arab American sisters and brothers, because we often assume not all Arab Americans are Muslim, and many of them are, but they come from different faith traditions, and some are atheists and agnostics too, just like the rest of us. So, but to be in fellowship with people like that, Andy Shala, who owns Busboy and Poets, and so many others of us gathered, and to be in that kind of robust community, talking about the very issues, Sister SJ, that we're talking about right here on your show. But the point that Brother Ari made about the whole Israel at all costs organization, that has a part of my trauma over this. Is not just what happened to me individually. This, I'm just a conduit, but I'm a flesh and blood conduit. Make no mistake, I got feelings too. But it is, once I was able to even see beyond myself, it is globally what this kind of thing means. And in its wake, I mean, we don't, unless the forces of good, and I'm not talking about forces of, because none of us are perfect, but I'm talking about the forces of good, those of us who see humanity and we're willing to fight for it all across the globe, this kind of thing could trigger a WW3. And when I think that far out, that is what makes what Brother Ari said so profound. Israel at all cost types of organizations. I think it was one of our other attorneys who talked about, the military industrial complex too, the military lobby as well. So it's all of these things. They're building one on the other, on the other, on the
It's
other.
right
And the
wing,
reason
right?
why.
So when you hear Ben Shapiro talking about, Israel can use nukes, I'm like, how can you be so casual about this? What's wrong with you?
Or just level. There was like level Gaza, turn it into a parking lot, push them out. They called Palestinians animals. And let me remind people, Netanyahu is a reflection of a right-wing Israeli government. That's just what it is. He has said, and people could go, and all you got to do is Google it. He has been very clear that he said under his watch, there will be no Palestinian state. I mean, so how do we, how do we expect our Palestinian sisters and brothers and allies to take that? He said no Palestinian state on his watch. So is there any gray there? I mean, am I misunderstanding that? I mean, I think that's crystal clear. And you have people like him on the right wing side who are willing to do any and everything, even if ultimately it could cost us the world.
That should be troubling to everybody.
You know, and let me just, Reverend Dr. Huey, I mean, it's almost like you're going to like pray us out. I mean, because you heard from Reverend Thurston how the Bible's being misused, how it's being abused. I mean, even the founder of Zionism, invoking God, he was an atheist. I mean, this is just, I think that Senator Turner's point about us we're on the brink of a third world war. I mean, these people are casually talking about using nukes. You know, you have Netanyahu who went to the UN just a few months ago. He presented a map of the new Middle East. He didn't have Palestine or Palestinians in it. How do you do that? That was in September.
Well, good morning, Santita, and to my esteemed colleagues, and I've been intrigued by the conversation. I think there are a couple of things that come to mind, and one is the utility of words. Sometimes we throw them around loosely and don't put context or definition around them. Politics is a game of principle, not popularity. And there's a distinction. When you're trying to be popular, you lose your moral suasion. When you're principled, you often lose your political allies. There's a difference between having agency and being an agent for an external interest. So when someone comes along and says, let me purchase you, literally, to fulfill my interest and my needs, it is a dehumanization of your agency, and it is an assault on your principle. So when you speak your mind as an independent, principled thinker, as opposed to sticking to talking points written for someone else's interest, you become a threat. And I think Pastor Thurston is right. We've lost the edge of theological independence, this biblical mythology of religious supremacy, of a chosenness by a stolen birthright. That's the text. Now, you can't always preach that in some settings because your folk gonna walk out and lock the doors on you. And so we have to be careful that we don't misunderstand this moment. Progressivism is less wedded to the religious mythology of chosenness. It's committed to justice. And justice involves everybody, not just somebody. It involves all interests, not just some interests. And if we're going to stand on this, we have to be willing to be principled and not popular. And if we're looking for friends, we're in the wrong game. And so here's what we got to get to. Here's what this ultimately comes down to, is we got to get back to financing grassroots campaign. That's Nina Turner's whole point. Because when you start needing to raise all of this money to run for public office, particularly at the national level, you then turn yourself into, there's a difference between a trip and escort. They're involved in the same line of work, but they ain't charging the same prices. Let's be real clear. If all you're going to do is be a high dollar escort for somebody else's interest simply because their form of payment is different, you're not changing the business, you're just changing the transaction. And so we got to be real clear. Here's what I went back and I thought about Abraham Joshua Heschel. He said something that was really profound. He said, we're a generation that has lost the capacity for outrage. And he said, if we don't remind ourselves in a free society, everybody's involved in what some are doing. Some are guilty, all are responsible. And if those who are outraged sit on their outrage, if they don't have the opportunity or the will to express their outrage, they go from being responsible, being part of the overall context, to being guilty. And we cannot go down being guilty because we've chosen to be silent. That's the issue in this moment.
Ari, why don't you respond to Tracy? I've got 2 minutes before we go. She said there is no connection between the Israel at all cost faction of the Democratic Party and Republicans, other than racist. GOP is 100% in support of cleansing Gaza, not us. This is not, to me, an issue about party, Tracy and Ari. This is about principle. Because the thing is, if you don't support a ceasefire on all sides, you're supporting ethnic cleansing. Shame on you. I don't care who you are. The fighting has to stop, Ari. We can't. I mean, now people are waiting. Oh my goodness, what's going to happen in the next 24 hours with the prisoner exchange? Because we got to get back to the fighting. Are you for real? The last 90 seconds belong to you, Ari.
Thanks so much, and that's really gracious. I think that, one of the things that I'd point out is that when it came to censuring Congresswoman Tlaib, of the 22 Democrats who joined nearly every Republican member in voting in favor of the resolution, at least 14 took campaign contributions from AIPAC. And in total, those lawmakers received almost $1 million. And that's based on an article that's on our homepage right now about AIPAC from Naomi LaChance that was edited by Miles Lawson. And so while I agree that there is a bit of a difference, of course, between Democrats and Republicans, right now what we're seeing in the House of Representatives is that only somewhere around 5% of the House of Representatives, and it's almost, I believe, entirely people of color, almost entirely Congress people of color, have signed the ceasefire resolution, including in Illinois, of course, Representative Delia Ramirez.
And Jonathan Jackson.
There are, and Jonathan Jackson, excuse me, yeah.
Okay.
And so, and I believe Chewy as well.
That's right.
And there are 435 members of the House of Representatives. We're talking about 5%, only 5% have signed this right now. And we are seeing the tide turning a little bit. We are seeing some cracks developing within the Democratic Party right now. We did see Representative Schakowsky, I believe yesterday or the day before, also calling for an extended ceasefire. But there's a awful long ways to go. And I think the bottom line for me is that none of these parties, neither of these parties represents the American public.
Well, see,
we're talking about an American public. Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah.
We're gonna continue to talk on the other side on the YouTube channel, on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, because I want you to finish what you're saying, because it's a bipartisan betrayal, everybody. And I am not going to stand by for that. These parties the Republicans should support a strong Republican, Democrats should support democracy, and vice versa. This is not right. And they need to get right. And now we're seeing all the money and all the things that influence them to behave and vote as they do. It's got to stop. You got to go the right way. My grandmother Gertrude said there's one way, the right way. Amen to that. Stay right here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. What did you say, Nina Turner? This conversation is fire. See you in the morning. Stay right here. Ari, I want you to finish your thought. I'm sorry, I just didn't want you to get cut off.
Oh no, not at all. I was just going to say that I believe somewhere around 70% of the American public, and that includes, I think, 3/4 of Democrats right now, want a ceasefire. And what we're seeing from the Biden administration, what we're seeing from the overwhelming majority of both parties, from the vast overwhelming majority of both parties, is a refusal to do that. And, one of the things that I think is maybe worth pointing out here is, we have so many members of Congress that are funded and supported by AIPAC. And it's important to remember that AIPAC is an organization that was basically created on, in blood, on the backs of bloodshed. AIPAC was created in the aftermath of an attack by the Israeli military on Palestinians in 1953. And, at the time, this was the American Zionist Committee for Public Affairs, which later became AIPAC and formally operated in 1954. But when we see AIPAC being most active is when we see AIPAC, trying to provide cover for an Israeli government that is committing violence and is bent on bloodshed and is honestly bloodthirsty and deeply bloodthirsty. And I forget who on the panel mentioned it about Prime Minister Netanyahu. And I would love to say that he's the worst of them, but he's not. And his government and his administration is widely recognized as the most far-right government in Israeli history. It has direct ties and linkages in history to the Jewish Defense League and to Meir Kahane. And we are seeing people in his cabinet like Ben Gvir literally go up and down Israel, arming settlers with assault rifles. Literally going up and down. And we've got an article coming from Natasha Rothwolin that points this out. And these settlers, it's not just in Gaza that this violence is being waged in community. We are seeing settlers in the West Bank shooting Palestinians, killing Palestinians, ethnically cleansing villages. This is a government bent on genocide, bent on ethnic cleansing. It's absolutely disgusting and in no way represents Judaism and in particular progressive Judaism. It represents the Israel at all costs government and the support of an American government that is willing to spend, $14 billion in military aid over.
But why? Why do they want to wipe everybody out, Ari? Help me.
I think there's, a few, possibilities around this. Because some people argue that the creation of the Zionist state and the implementation of Zionism is inherently a settler colonial project. And being a inherently settler colonial project that its fundamental being is to be supremacist and to be homogenous. And that's certainly I think a strong possibility here for what's happening. There were a lot of Zionists early on in the foundation of Israel that believed in a different type of Zionism. But what we're seeing in most forms of modern Zionism is really quite disgusting and is really abhorrent in so many ways. There are, if you spend time in Israel, you will see oftentimes examples of this all over the place. With the effort to eliminate Palestinians, and the amount of racism is fairly incalculable. I've been frequently told that if I go to East Jerusalem, I will be murdered. It's abhorrent on so many levels. But I think that we also have to look at what happens.
You'll be murdered.
Why? Sorry. Yeah.
No. You'd be murdered.
Because Palestinians would kill me. In East Jerusalem, it's absolutely absurd. And what's so wild to me are, Israel's not a very big country at the end of the day. And what's so wild to me is how few people have been across the Green Line, how few people have actually spent time in the West Bank, how few people have spent time in Gaza. And the first thing that or a couple things that you notice when you go to the West Bank for the first time, one is you see how deeply entrenched apartheid is. It couldn't be clearer. There are streets that I can walk down that Palestinians can't. There are license plates that Palestinians have. There are license plates that Israelis have. And that's like one of the things that you see immediately. Another thing that you see immediately is, of course, what you would assume, which is how deeply kind and welcoming and loving all of the Palestinian communities there are, of Jews, of non-Jews, and how really at the end of the day, they simply want to be able to stay on their land and live their lives. And it's absolutely abhorrent. If you pay attention, at all right now, we have an article up by a Palestinian writer named Raya Kel right now, who is pointing out the murderous, unhinged settlers in the West Bank right now who are doing nothing short of terrorizing and violently attacking Palestinian communities in the West Bank. And so I think it's important that while what's going on in Gaza is a genocide and is so disgusting and scary, it's also important to pay attention to what's happening on the West Bank.
And what's been happening is people have been trying to go back to northern Gaza, right? I mean, the ceasefire has not been working there,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of these things we see online and stuff, but I've seen those reports too, that when people have tried to return to their homes in northern Gaza, they've been shot and attacked.
Dwight, you have anything to say? Anybody have anything?
Yeah, I think that you hit it right on the head when we talked about this notion, this mythology of a chosen people. It's where this thing veers off. When you believe that you are chosen by God as God's special people over and against anybody else, in your mind it gives you the right to go and take somebody's land in God's name, put your flag on it and declare it to be yours. It gives you the belief that your children being kidnapped have more value than other kids being bombed and maimed. It gives you a basic premise that whatever you do in life is God ordained. However horrendous, however horrific, that as long as it's you doing it because you're God's chosen person, then God has preordained it to be. And so there's no accountability. There's no earthly accountability because you are operating at another level. You are operating at a divine level. And everything else has to be subservient to that. And so we have to first look real closely at the notion, at the belief that somehow these are God's chosen people and that God has given them the right to be in charge and to subjugate other people in their interest. And what is that built on? What is that based on? Is that real? Did God really say this? Is this how this really played out in history? Because part of the reason that the church, the black church and the white church, supports this nonsense is because they believe the mythology. They've bitten into the mythology that somehow these are the chosen people, and that this is the new way of the Messiah's return. When we look at why the politicians in America, even beyond the money, is so supportive of Israel, is because they believe that their constituencies, particularly much of the churches, the Protestant churches, so support this notion of the chosen people that they abdicate all of their ethics and morals in order to get reelected, because they think that if they don't support this, that the wrath of the church and the wrath of the media will come down on this. And then lastly, the military-industrial complex, if we understand how that works, they control much of the thinking and the policy of the country because they are the ones that sponsor Meet the Press. They are the ones that sponsor all of the talk shows on Sunday morning that establishes social policy and establishes democratic thought. Rayon is the one that does the commercials on Sunday morning, and all of those military companies that benefit from the military-industrial complex. So in many ways, our thoughts are not our own. Everything from our theology to our social policy is being controlled by people whose interest it is is impose war and to benefit from war and take advantage of our manipulate our ignorance for the sake of waging war.
Well, I mean,
And it works.
And it works, and it's destroying the world. I mean, that's the tragedy of it all. Robert Patillo, I want to get some closing thoughts from everybody, or just whatever's on your mind, because we've talked about a lot today. Robert Patillo.
Certainly, and I think the biggest issue is understanding we have to start reestablishing campaign finance reform in America. Since Citizens United, we've seen the power of dark money and special interests infiltrate the American politics like never before. You have people like Senator Menendez, who's literally a foreign agent sitting on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. People like George Santos facing 21 charges of fraud. Donald Trump, of course, on file for fraud. The way money has infiltrated American politics since Citizens United was completely expected. But when you're looking at the power that groups like APEC and others have, is because they can make these unlimited expenditures with money that comes from who knows where, and that there's no accountability around it. We're allowing our democracy to be bought and sold before our very eyes, and we're not making it a primary campaign issue in 2024. The democracy may be lost already.
Well, and it's interesting, Robert. CK said, look, whatever you say is legal. How did we get here, Robert? This is all legal. I mean, the founding fathers told us don't do this. A two-party system leads to tyranny. Don't everything that they told us 200 plus years ago, they had their flaws. There's no question about that. 3/5, we were human animals, chattel slaves. I get it. But there were some things they did get right. There were some things that they foresaw. Don't get involved in don't get involved in other people's foreign stuff. Don't do that. That's not going to help us. Robert.
Yeah. Well, people forget is that both Washington's farewell address and Monroe document or Monroe Doctrine were supposed to be reciprocal. So just as much as Europe was supposed to stay out of our affairs in this hemisphere, we were supposed to leave the hemisphere alone. And we, of course, did not do that until we had the opportunity to do so. And when you're looking at the responsibilities associated with that, it's impossible to have a republic or a free democracy where you're trying to maintain an international empire. The two do not go together. You cannot say we have freedom and independence here, but then use imperial methodology around the world in order to maintain the power necessary for that. And when we're looking at the place that we are currently, if any other nation on earth, I think the Turner made the point, I think others made the point, if any other country on earth had the influence over American politics that Israel has, we would be wondering at what point they were trying to invade us. And and for some reason, we allow this to continue. We allow this to be part and parcel, regardless of administration, regardless of party and power. When Barack Obama left office, he left Israel a few $1 billion. When Donald Trump got into office, he gave Israel a few $1 billion. It's just part of American politics that we have to break free from, because it's impossible to intellectually justify being in support of Israel, but not being in support of reparations for African Americans. It's the same argument either way. You have two groups that have been historically discriminated against. You have two groups that need economic and territorial reparations in order to prosper. However, the same conservatives who support Israel with hundreds of billions of dollars, U.S. has given Israel something close to $300 billion since their founding. If you add in the money given by Europe and other countries, we're talking about trillions of dollars in reparations for them to have their nation. And black folks in here in America, we have to start asking the question, well, why can't we get the same deal?
Wow. Reverend Dr. Yuri?
Let me draw some references. Zionism, Catholicism, Protestantism, evangelicalism, Pentecostalism. They reach significant peoples grounded by one thread. Jewish people are chosen, everybody else is not. So the notion of discrimination is not a thing in a chosenness frame. It's called order. It's not unjust if it's God ordained. It's called order. If our mythology and our theology is not current, we find ourselves trapped in old ideals and ongoing systems. So part of this is creating this uproar of internal conflict. Should I speak out against the carnage that I'm witnessing? Because in order to do so, I have to buck the buy-in to the mythology of chosenness to the exclusion of everybody else. That's at the, I don't care how you label this. At the end of the day, Israel versus Hamas is not Israel in a benign sense. The blowback of new lawyers being recruited at firms who took positions and then had their offers rescinded, endowment funds at public and private universities being adversely impacted because there's an independent expression of thought that is grounded in the outrage that Abraham Joshua Heschel talked about. And at the end of the day, what we find is this ongoing loyalty to an outdated mythology grounded in this false notion that there can be a chosenness to the exclusion of everybody else. And until we get the theology right, the politics ain't ever going to be right, because it's going to be grounded in this notion that if I'm not loyal to this system, somehow or other, it's going to bring judgment and adverse consequences on me. And in the end, I would much rather be a puppet using my voice for someone else's interest than being an independent, self-actualized agent of the power of God, to be able to talk about the things of justice that affect all people, not just me. See, at the end of the day, this is not just a thing. This has been a thing for a long time. That part of the issue for all of the oppressed peoples of the world is somewhere, somehow, you're going to find the institutionalization of a particular brand of religious thought as one of the controlling factors that influences not only how folks think, but how folks behave and respond. And if I'm causing you to be loyal to this sense of divinity that expects some sort of compliance with a behavior that says you must go along to get along, even if it costs you your life, that somehow or other, we've got to not only dismantle that theology, don't just dismantle it, throw it away. It's garbage. Now, that's called heresy in some spots. Let's be real clear. Remember, if you're going to be about this life, you got to be willing to be principled, not just popular. Dr. King didn't become popular until after he was dead. He was principled while he was alive. And so this notion that somehow or other we're going to make a whole lot of friends standing on the cause of right issues and right causes, for that matter, is a misguided thought. It just ain't going to happen. And so this is, I know we try to appeal to the masses, but, you know, a Reverend Jesse, there ain't no more Reverend Jesse Jacksons coming. He didn't come out of a cookie cutter. To try to replay that is not going to happen. Everybody's got to do their piece for their level of influence in the spaces where they operate, but they got to do it as self-authenticated agents with the power of God already flowing through them that allows them to be outraged and speak to the issue of responsibility and obligation and duty to make things right. Otherwise, look, the money's gonna flow. Look, they sold Jesus out for 20 pieces of silver. At the end of the day, somebody gonna sell you out. Don't be shocked by that. That's always been part of the game. But I go back to Big Brother Dwight's point. It's not what they offering, it's what you accepting that really determines whether or not you're gonna have a transaction. That's rule number one of contract. You gotta have an offer, but you also have to have acceptance. And if there's no consideration about what the exchange is about, then you don't have a deal. Let's stop playing this like it's the old game show. Let's make a deal where we're just trying to figure out will we get something behind door number 1, door number 2, door number 3, but we don't know what's behind the door until we pick one. Let's then become agents of the construction of our own kind of reality and just society where we're not playing this game. We're invested in it because we are principled people, not just trying to be popular people.
Amen to that.
And Yuri to support that, the scriptures that they use to justify it is that God loved Jacob, but God hated Esau. And so that becomes the basis of a theology without understanding any context or any historic flow or any dynamics that came out of that over 3,000 years ago. We dangle that as if that is an absolute, that is a proverb, that God loved Jacob and hated Esau. And that's the justification, while one person is chosen to dominate another person. And so until you deal with a direct onslaught of the mythology that this is grounded in, you will be susceptible to justifying anything that quote unquote Jacob does to Esau. And that you feel like if you don't support Jacob, you're on the wrong side of God. The question arises, one, is this the same Jacob? And is this the same Esau? And the question also arises that were there some things that happened historically where God introduces a new covenant that placates all of that?
Well, because it was a
And
broken
if your
covenant.
theology is not right, huh?
Yeah, there's a broken covenant. So when you talk about being chosen, when you break the covenant, you break that. So I mean, there's a whole. I'm just saying that there's a whole lot to unpack. I want to give everyone
It
closing.
is, but if you're not teaching that in the churches, if you're not theologically sound, and you're not teaching that in the churches, then you become susceptible to that. So when they take the preachers over to Israel and they show them, the Wailing Wall, and they contextualize the Wailing Wall for the preachers who they themselves don't have enough understanding to be able to contextualize it for themselves, then they come back with the party line.
Well, that's why I'm
And
saying
they come back with the rah-rah.
I was furthering your point. There's just so much that has not been taught, and there's so much that's been perverted in the teachings. It's awful. And look at and we're living out the perversion and the awfulness. We are. I'm going to get closing thoughts from everyone because I need to wrap this up. Dwight, why don't you give me some closing thoughts? I want to hear from Ari. I don't know if you're still there, Nina. Nina, are you still there?
I'm taking it all in.
Okay, but I'm
I feel like I've been taking it all in.
Well, the answer is the new covenant is that we all are the brotherhood of man, and we all are the fatherhood of God. In that, everybody is saved by grace. There is no chosen people. There's a chosen person. And that chosen person, died for everybody. Everybody sinned. And all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And so that we have to see each other, not as they're chosen and we're not, or we're chosen and they're not, but see each other as, part of the brotherhood of man in the sonship of God. Is that the theology, as Yuri was saying, the theology has to change. So then we see the value in little Palestinian kids getting bombed and maimed and killed. And we don't dismiss that as collateral damage. And so these kids come home from Israel and we rejoice, and we should rejoice. And we celebrate them and we tell their stories. But at the same time, all these kids in the rubble on the Palestinian side, we call them collateral damage and move on. It's something distorted about their mentality.
Well, they're not even
So
children.
we really have to start there.
They're young people. Remember, you're killing
That's
Palestinian youth.
collateral damage.
You know, a youth at
They
5.
just got killed in.
Crazy. It's just as off, and it's just as off and crazy. Ari, what's coming up and in these times, and what do you see?
Well, one thing that I wanted to add on to about the conversation around theology is that if you go into most synagogues in the U.S. Right now, in particular, most like Reformed synagogues and other synagogues, what you'll see is that there's the ark with the Torah in the center on the bima, and it's flanked on one side by an American flag and on the other side by an Israeli flag. And I think that one of the things that to me that represents is a question of who's God in that room. Who are we really in loyalty there? Who are we really in prayer to? And there's been a lot of writers and thinkers who have talked about land being God. Ari Gasherman wrote a really powerful article for Tikkun magazine called "Land is God," and that's one of the things that's always struck me about it. And one of the other things that struck me is that when it was when it was Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur earlier this year, there weren't a lot of conversations about Israel, and in particular the anti-democracy protests. The pro-democracy protests against Netanyahu. Another thing I just wanted to add on to was just giving a +1 about the weapons manufacturers. They're seeing unbelievable profits right now, absolutely unbelievable profits right now, and it is really scary on so many levels. And the last thing I wanted to underscore was how absolutely violent this all is. Of course, not just in Israel and Palestine, but here in the U.S. on Saturday we saw 3 young Palestinians shot in Vermont, in Illinois, in a of course the suburb outside of Chicago. We saw a 6-year-old stabbed 26 times, while the white supremacist killer was yelling, "Muslims must die." Muslims all across Illinois and across the country are reporting such an incredible surge in hate crimes and violence right now. It's just absolutely so scary. And if AIPAC and the Anti-Defamation League and Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world don't feel responsibility for any of this, they absolutely should. The blood is very much also on their hands. As a progressive left, I think it's really our responsibility right now to be in solidarity with so many folks who are going to be under attack, who are under attack in this moment, and who are going to continue to be under attack in this moment. What we saw, post 9/11, and what we've seen in so many circumstances is that what happens here in this jingoistic atmosphere is that people of color are violently maligned and attacked, sort of across the board here. And that's something that, as a progressive left, we really need to focus on and fight against. And we need our politicians to take concrete action to stop all of the rising violence and hatred right now.
Ari, you got to come back. I mean, not next week or sometime this week to talk about the weapons manufacturers and all the monies that they're making. And I just hope that you know that you have a home on this platform. You and in these
thank you so much. It's been really an honor to be here with you all.
Well, okay, now that you can be done being honored, now you're family, so you got it. So just stay right there. I want Nina Turner to close us out.
Oh, just amen to everything that the brothers have said today, and hopefully the listening audience, SJ is getting the texture that they would rarely get. And big ups to you too for using your platform in this way to educate, edify, to lift, and also to cause conversation and debate. There are no two sides to justice, as the brothers have been laying out. Either you are on the right side. There comes a turning point. This is a turning point here, where there are no two sides to this when it comes to does every life matter? Are all those lives just as precious? One as precious as the other, no matter how people identify. This is the moment that we are in, and I think there's promise in the problem. This is a serious problem. It's been going on for decades, for generations, even before all of us were even on this call were born. And there comes a time where a group of somebody have to stand up and say no more and not on our watch. And I think we are at that critical time. And the promise in this problem is that we can change things, and may nobody ever be the same because of what is happening in the Middle East. And by extension, it really happening all over the world. I mean, we got the continent of Africa that's been disrupted since time immemorial, still disrupted from imperialism and colonialism. I'm not sure the continents will ever truly recover. Blood is on the hands of every single European nation and non-European nation that participated in the rape and the pillage of the continent, and we see the consequences. See, that's what we are feeling, the consequences of what happened hundreds and thousands of years ago. And so our children and children's children, unless we do something good in this moment, will still reap the consequences of what is happening to this day. The promise is that people are standing up and that people are being exposed and have the opportunity to hear what the truth of the matter is. And this, we can no longer be the same in the face of this. And then lastly, SJ, as you started this conversation, just lifting up Hill Harper. I mean, it took an extraordinary amount of courage for him to reveal what was said to him. He could have easily said, I'll take 20 million, let me run against, and anybody can be run against. So that's not my point here. I love a good primary, don't get me wrong, but it's the rationale for which they want a primary, Sister Tlaib, that is the problem. And big ups to Brother Hill Harper, who said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm running for the United States Senate. And oh, by the way, what you're saying is absolutely wrong. And then he was willing to go public with it. He could have said, no, thank you, and I ain't going to say nothing about this conversation. But the fact that he was willing to stand up in public gives us an opportunity to not only have the conversation about how he was approached, but also to revisit other approaches, the things that happened in my race, things that happened in, even in Senator Sanders' race or Congressman Andy Levin's race, and so many others that I'm not even naming. Sister Summer Lee, yes, she was able to beat them back, but barely. And one of the reasons why her and her team were able to beat them back is because they saw the play that had happened to me in 2021 and also in 2022. So there, again, the fact, and I can't wait till you interview him, because I'm so glad that he was willing to come forward and tell the truth on what is happening and opening up other avenues for this type of truth. And then on the spiritual side, I mean, the brothers did it every day. They really laid this out. I mean, I feel like I was in class.
Well, you
this
stayed.
morning. So
I
thank
know
you.
you're supposed to be lifting weights and running. But
yeah, I'll get it in.
Well, I have to thank WCPT and AM 950 Radio, my home stations, for their willingness to host what are difficult conversations. I mean, and everybody doesn't like the platform that I have and the platform that, and the people who I bring forth to speak. But Ari and Dwight and Reverend Dr. Yeary and Robert and Senator Turner, these are the conversations I believe that we need to have. The only way that we're going to get right is to speak not your truth. There's no such thing as my truth and your truth. There is the truth. Truth is neutral. Truth is God. That's it. You have your experience, but there's truth. And we've got to put it all out here. Every life is important. And until we get there, theologically, spiritually, actually, we're going to be right here. And you talk about The blood that's being spilled in Chicago and in urban areas and in rural areas all around America. The greatest purveyor of violence in the world. 60 years ago, Dr. King said it, and today is America. That's got to stop. It's got to stop. And I think more and more Americans are beginning to see that, and they want it to stop. But it won't stop unless you make it. If you want peace, you got to be about peace, and you got to fight for it. And you must fight to maintain it, to sustain it, to achieve it. Gore Vidal was asked about the United States, and he said perhaps his most profound disappointment in this American project was that we could have achieved civilization, but we were ambitious for empire. We could have achieved civilization where no one would be without any food, any opportunity to actualize themselves educationally, personally. That's civilization. That survives. Empire is when you have a few greedy people taking everything and the rest of us scrambling for our dear lives. We got to go the right way. My grandma Gertrude put it this way. She died in 2017. She said, look, remember this. There is one way, the right way. When you go to the hospital, you don't want to get better. You want to get well. America is in the hospital right now, at least it ought to be. And it shouldn't get better. It needs to get well. Israel's in the hospital right now. In fact, they are on life support. They need to get well. Palestinians need to get well. We just need to make this right. Ceasefire now for everybody. And justice. Justice. That's what we need. And we're going to have it. You got this wonderful group that we have here and so many others who are fighting for it. We're going to have it. But we're going to have to fight for it, everybody. Power can teach nothing without demand. It never has and it never will. Thank you, Frederick Douglass. I love you all this morning and thank you for being with us. Everybody like and share the show. Like and share the show. A lot of people messing with our algorithms, but that's okay. All you have to do is like and share the show. So please, Ashley, everybody like and share the show and tell people about it so that they can join us. It's a real blessing. And Ari, remember this, now you're family. So just go on and relax. In these times magazine, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely subscribe to it. And I'm going to connect you and Senator Turner because she needs to speak with you. Okay, Ari?
Great. Thanks so much.
Okay, sending you so much love. Love you, everybody. Love you, Morning Stars. I'm running. I got to run to a Zoom call that I'm late for, but that's all right. You were so worth that. Love you, everybody. Love you, Dwight. Love you, Todd.
Love you too.
Love you, Robert. Love you, my sister
Love
Nina.
you.
Nina, Bina. Go on,
Love
Grandma.
you.
Love you, girl.
Love you too.
Bye.